This is Denji.
Hello?
He wants to touch Booba, he wants to bang everything, and he does whatever he can for Makima. Denji is a simp, just like all of us. Or is he? Well, yes, I would say he definitely is a simp on the surface, but you peel back on the layers of Denji and he becomes so much more than that. In fact, I would argue that Denji is one of the most misunderstood shonen protagonists, and today we're going to break down what makes Denji such a relatable and spectacular character. Denji certainly did not have the best of upbringings, with his mother passing early on from a heart condition and his father abusing him after the fact. Terrified from his father's abuse, he killed him. The Yakuza masked his death as suicide, and because Denji was horrified at what he did, he hid it behind a door deep in his psyche. However, not only did his dad pass to the afterlife, but he passed along a debt worth well over 40 million yen. So now he has to work for the Yakuza to clear his debt or they'll kill him. Because of this, he grows up in extreme poverty with no way to an education of any kind. This is a horrific situation to be in, and it's made even worse because he is literally just a child. He is starting from the absolute bottom at such a young age. Denji didn't have anyone. No one loved him and held him as a child or treated him like a human being. In fact, they would treat him like a dog, as demonstrated by the Yakuza. No one ever told him that he mattered. He did retain at least one trait that all human beings have in them: to survive. And man, did he do everything he could to survive. Working his ass off for the Yakuza, living in a shack off only slices of bread, and so in need of money that he sold one of his testicles and his right eye. Denji would literally do just about anything to get by. After meeting his chainsaw dog devil thing, Pochita, he becomes a devil hunter as it's the best way to earn money. To him, this was the norm, being treated like he was a human dog and hardly getting by on a daily basis. And by all means, he kind of is like a dog. He does and will do what literally anybody tells him to do. This is something I would argue separates Denji from other protagonists in the shonen genre. Naruto wants to become Hokage so that people will finally accept him. Asta wants to become the Wizard King to end discrimination against the lower class. Tanjiro becomes a demon slayer because he wants to kill Muzan to make his sister human again. And Luffy wants to be king of the pirates and find the One Piece. All of these protagonists have some grand, world-changing quests that they're on that are super huge goals. Denji, compared to the bunch, is much more down to earth. He doesn't care about doing anything grand, or changing the world even. He simply just wants to be able to eat good food, sleep peacefully, and have a girlfriend. Maybe indulge in some sexual activity with said girl, feel some boobs, stuff of that nature. Denji just wants to be able to live a normal life. This is so relatable because these are goals that we all have. We all just want to find a way to live comfortably. We want to eat well and sleep with no worries at night. And a good portion of us want to be and feel loved. On some type of level, we all want a sense of security and being wanted in our lives, just like Denji does. Although his life gets turned upside down again when his bosses made a contract with a devil, turning them into zombies. After ripping him to pieces, they throw him into a dumpster. But here he is reborn with Pochita as his heart, and he becomes Chainsawman. After a carnage rampage, something comes into his life that makes things go on a temporary incline: Makima. Most people assume that Denji fell in love with Makima because he was being controlled by her, but they're only half right. The real reason he fell in love with Makima was because for the first time in his 16 years of life, he's being treated like a human being by her. He actually had somebody being nice to him. Although I will say, this is a lot like I said earlier. Denji was being treated like a dog still by her. As long as she shows him affection and kindness while feeding him, he becomes endlessly loyal. And this loyalty, just like a dog, is rewarded by Makima providing for him. Denji has a place to live now that isn't a shack, and he's able to eat 3 meals a day. Now he even has friends he lives with, and he has a girl that he thinks is gorgeous that seems to care about him. Denji has finally been able to achieve exactly what he wanted in life. All it's left for him is to get a girlfriend. At least, in his eyes, that's all he needs. What he doesn't realize is that during the entire story, Denji has no control over anything that's happening. He has no agency. No decisions he makes seem to matter in the greater scheme of things. This is actually what the entire story boils down to Denji trying to have control over his own life. This is another thing that can relate us to Denji, as many of us hardly have control over our own lives. We can't make decisions in our lives without other people's approval or excessive paperwork, and some decisions we make end up not mattering at all. But you see, Denji at his heart is still a child because he never got the chance to grow up. out, or the chance to mature because his environment never let him. We see this a lot with his very verbal horniness. Yeah, he's a horny dude, but I think that's pretty accurate to most teenage guys. The reason he's so vocal about it is likely due to his lack of parental guidance, as he's never learned that was wrong. It's like how a kid will randomly shout something that could be mean to somebody, except in Denji's case, it's him wanting to fuck. Although I will say, despite him being very horny, he never rolls into the creepy territory at all. He had initially forgotten about Power saying he could touch her boobs. He was strung along by Rize during his brief time with her. He didn't take advantage of Himino and stayed loyal to Makima. Every time he's been placed in a situation where he could fulfill his desires, he's stayed respectful to the women around him, or chosen his friends over them. Not to mention his desire for a woman in his life more than likely comes from the complete lack of a mother while he was growing up. He desperately wants that affection and tenderness from someone without realizing it, and I think that's what this has manifested into. Anyways, due to him having the mentality of a child, he can't see how he's being taken advantage of. So while to some of us, Makima using him was extremely obvious, to him this is someone that is willing to give him everything he wants. So he wants to do everything he can for her, even if what she wants isn't necessarily what he wants. His zero education doesn't help with this either, because he lacks the fundamentals and any kind of thinking to see what's going on is wrong. This is why, despite the story of Chainsaw Man being absurd, it's extremely endearing. Chainsaw Man, at least for part 1, is the story of Denji finding his identity as a human being. The moment Denji started his search for who he is was the moment he was born again, out of the dumpster when Pochita became his new heart. From this point on, whether he realized it or not, he was on a quest for identity and on a journey of maturing. And man, he did in fact learn a lot. He made his first friend in Himino, which ended up being a little bumpy, but still beneficial to his growth. At first, Aki and him heavily disliked each other, but put aside their differences, and he made great friends with him. Later down the line, he ended up bonding to an extreme level with Power. From these two, he learned emotions such as being angry or upset. Even if some of these emotions he seemed to have felt secondhand, he learned how to feel and to understand a little of what he's feeling as a person. He learned for the first time what it's like to have fun with other people, and to be a little careless, such as that time that they went to the beach, or when they went drinking. Denji, for the first time in his life, really gets to let loose and have fun. And most importantly, he got the one thing that he's never truly got to experience in his life: a family. Power and Aki formed Denji's first ever household where he felt he belonged. And whether directly or indirectly, he was able to experience a multitude of important emotions and go through many bonding experiences, traumatic or completely normal. Thanks to his newfound life, Denji started maturing and began to question what he truly wanted, as he realized that his life, despite being full now, still felt like there was something missing. He then sets a minor goal, which is to touch a pair of breasts, which turns into a much larger goal, and upon accomplishing it, realizes that he felt zero satisfaction. The reality of this ends up hitting him hard, since these connections with a woman were something he had been wanting for a long time. This ends with him seriously reflecting on what a goal truly is, and whether he'll be happier if the goal is finished, or if he enjoys chasing it more. We all have been in this spot before, where we're chasing a goal and putting everything we can into it. Then, once we get there, we have a moment where we think to ourselves, that's it? We, just like Denji, learn that some goals aren't worth pursuing, and we should set our minds to what truly matters. His self-reflection will only grow from here, as he unexpectedly meets Rize. She teaches him some great things, such as how to swim, what it might be like to be in a relationship, and through her he can experience what a school would be like. However, she asks him to run away, and Denji at this point makes the decision not to. He has a life he cares about now, something he just can't run away from. The first incredibly mature decision he makes on his own is met with his first heartbreak. Not only this, but when the person that called him a friend for the first time passes, Himino, he wonders why he can't find it in him to cry at her death. So along with the dilemma of goals in life, he wonders if he lost his human heart when he was reborn as Chainsaw Man. These depressing revelations and experiences, along with the very positive ones he's experienced, allow Denji to grow immensely from what everyone referred to earlier as a dog being told what to do by everyone to a teenage guy. From here, he forms a great bond with Aki that is literally like that of a brother, and he refuses to go on a one-on-one trip with Makima so he can stay home and take care of Power, instead of doing what Denji would have done at the beginning of the series, which was easily go with Makima and leave Power behind with the possibility of receiving something sexual in nature. He opts to be selfless and stays with someone who needs him after going through something traumatic. This, along with the denial of Rize's request to run away, shows serious growth in Denji, as he is willing to pick what he believes is right over what his hollow desires may be, because he's learned that these goals get him nowhere, and he's learned about about the importance of family. This hits a pinnacle when Denji is presented in a dream with the door that Pochita has told him not to open deep within his subconscious. Pochita doesn't try to stop him this time, but he instead stops himself from opening it, realizing that there are some things in life that it's better to stay in the dark about. This is a lesson he learned from Kishibe, that ignorance is bliss. So while Denji sometimes still lacks in a fundamental understanding of human emotions, human reasoning, and there are times where he acts really dumb, he's begun to finally outgrow the child within him. However, this is when a huge wrench would be thrown at Denji, Aki becoming the gun devil. Makima had laid the seeds for Denji to build himself up and grow as a person, and now it was time for her to knock down the dominoes she had so meticulously set up. Because of her manipulation, Denji has to choose between attempting to save his friend and the lives of many countless individuals. He does make his decision, but he kills Aki, someone he saw as a brother. Aki's death is what brings a lot of Denji's misunderstandings through emotions to the surface. He knows he shouldn't open the door because he doesn't want to grapple with the possible death of Aki. He's incredibly sad about Aki's death, but just like Himino, he can't find himself crying. Instead, he finds himself in a predicament that only he would be able to be in. Games aren't as fun as they used to be, and food isn't as good as it used to be either. In fact, while thinking about Aki, he vomits up his ice cream. The way he deals with grief and his sadness isn't exactly like that of a normal person, as despite his growth, he still doesn't fully understand how he feels. This is the first time he's felt grief to this degree. The way he deals with his emotions and his sadness isn't exactly like that of a normal person, as despite his growth, he still doesn't fully understand how he feels. This is the first time he's felt grief to this degree, and because of this, he ends up reverting back to his old tendencies, which results in the biggest mistake he could ever make. He goes back to Makima, and he asks her, despite all of his growth, to make him her dog. Because of him submitting to Makima's will, Denji surrounds his sense of judgment and ignores Pochita's warnings and opens the door to Makima's apartment, resulting in the death of his very last friend Power. Before he can even process exactly what happened, Makima unlocks all of Denji's childhood trauma. She makes him remember he killed his father, and that he used to be nothing until she gave him something. But this was all in an attempt to make Denji fall the hardest he had ever had. You can't fall if you've never been raised up, after all. This is when we see that Denji, despite his emotional and mental growth, at heart, is still just a lonely child. After this, Pochita takes over as Chainsaw Man, and all hell breaks loose for a little bit, which ends up with him dying again, right in a dumpster like he did in chapter 1. And just like in chapter 1, he's brought back by a friend, but instead of Pochita, it's the first person he's ever truly really treasured that he had never realized he did before. It's Power. Denji doesn't understand why he's back, because to him, he did in fact get to live his best life, completing all the goals he had wanted to when he was in poverty. In fact, he misses her much more than he can bear now that she's gone, just like he misses Aki. To his surprise, however, Power tells him to go find the Blood Devil and try to bring Power back again. She forms a contract with him for Denji to come find her, and this becomes Denji's first actual meaningful goal. We of course have not seen the outcome of this long-term goal, but this is a huge step forward for him. It's from here that Denji is born again from a dumpster, just like he was in the beginning of the series. But this time, things could not be any more different. He's lived a life with friends, a newfound family, heartbreak and hardships, fun times and good times, all types of experiences, and for the first time, a real, non-hollow goal. Denji is born into the world with purpose after 16 years, and Makima had inadvertently set up her own demise by killing Power and Aki. He may have lost his main connection to humanity and emotions, but he has not forgotten what it looks or feels like. Denji now realizes that he's never made his own choices, and he only ever did what he was told, just like a dog. Along with Power giving him the goal of finding her, Tobeni questions Denji's self-reflection, as he has said his dream was that he wanted to be normal. Because of her questioning, Denji realizes that he doesn't want to be normal, and that he loves being and wants to be Chainsaw Man. This is what leads to one of the only times, if not the only time, Denji cries in the entire manga. His tears are because he's realized his purpose in life along with his goals he wishes to accomplish. Along with this, he is now able to see that Makima never once looked at him as a person. Aki and Power looked at him as an equal and with love in their hearts. He knows what it's like to be appreciated and to be wanted, to be truly looked at. Makima has never looked at him the way that his friends did, and he realized that this entire time she had only been looking for Chainsaw Man, and never him. He has to swallow the pill that the first person to ever help him feel cared for never actually cared for him in the first place. Even after he's killed Makima, he cannot move past her because she is the entire reason he is at his current position in life. Without Makima, he would have never grown from being a lonely child to a maturing teenage boy. Makima turned the dog inside of Denji into a real human, and because of that, he still loves her, despite all that she's done to him. So, he eats her. Yeah, he eats her. Not just because of Chainsaw Man's ability to erase devils, but also because he wants to become one with the person he loves at least once. This leads to the control devil spawning separately, and he's given a new goal by Pochita to help her feel loved. After starting with only a dream of eating good food and hugging a girl at the absolute bottom, Denji finds himself as the hero of society and the loved Chainsaw Man. He's grown from someone who couldn't make decisions for himself, who simply only followed other people and couldn't understand emotions, to being able to make decisions for himself, like to actually attend school and educate himself, to lead himself in life, and he now at least has a grasp on what emotions are. Denji has gone on a journey that we all as humans go through, albeit way more bloody and fucking insane than most of what we see in real life. We all learn the worth of family and how important they are to us. We all know what it's like to set lousy goals and feel zero satisfaction from them, and make those goals that bring us so much joy we can hardly contain ourselves. We all feel at times our decisions are meaningless and have no greater weight. But at some point in time, we will realize our true potential and our meaning and worth. We go through bad or toxic relationships, whether romantic or platonic. I know I sure have. Where the other party is just using us for their own means. But just like Denji, we persevere, keep moving forward. Whether we realize it or not, we all have that innate human trait to survive. Denji perfectly embodies what it's like to be human. Although he doesn't completely understand this feeling, and what it is to be human just yet, he's finally on the path to being the best him he can be. Denji is on his quest to be Chainsaw Man. Thank you, Jim and Ray, for supporting me on Patreon. I appreciate you guys a lot, and I'll see you next time.